order. And our next meeting, oh, I guess we're starting with the minutes. Does anyone want to talk about last month's minutes? Risa.
I move that we approve the minutes from the September meeting.
I second that.
Okay. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, minutes are approved from the last meeting. Thank you. Our next regular meeting is November 17th. It's a week early because of Thanksgiving the following week, just as a note. Do we have any announcements? Risa.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
When is an appropriate time to update the commission about Kate?
Oh,
Doesn't matter to me.
no, I think this is fine. It's fine to do it now. If that's your announcement of what.
Oh, that now is fine.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, I have made several phone calls and emails trying to get someone that knows something about the status of Kate Kennedy's application. And Tanya weighed in and which she can speak to. And then I called the city and left a general message. And then I sent emails to council and mayor, and I heard back from Councilor Jensen. And he has said that he is going to join Councilor Graham in advocating that we can get this resolved and figure out, you know, what's going on, where her application is. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate you doing all of that. And it sounds like we will hang on and be patient until the next meeting. And is there anything else, any other steps we need to do in the meantime?
Can I ask a question just for the record when she submitted her application?
August.
Thanks, Risa.
So I wrote back, I wrote over to the mayor at the beginning of October after the last meeting and just said I had talked to Kate and I supported the appointment. But I also pointed out that there was a question about whether there was a position available depending on whether the student, whether Anya could be the ASD rep. I think that question is still sitting out there. And so if there's anything that can be done to answer the question around the ASD rep, I think that would be helpful. And I think it's probably a call to the school district.
Okay.
And it's probably the best one to do that would probably be the chair of the commission.
Okay. I can do that. I'm sorry. I hadn't quite realized that.
No, it's a very strange situation. It's a very unique situation.
Okay.
Well, I was heartened that Councilor Jensen was kind of joining our efforts. And so maybe possibly the more people requesting progress, it's possible that it could get us down the road. So thank you for doing what you've been doing. One day we'll be there.
I have a question, Antonia, for you. From a city council perspective, is it just the logjam that's happening in city council itself, or is it more of a, like, are people talking about reframing how the commissions work, and so therefore there's not a lot of movement on it? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, the question about reframing the commissions or looking at this commission system has been set aside while we deal with the general fund. So there's nothing structural in the way of the appointments. We're not no one's trying to hold them off while we rework the system. They did clarify that process earlier this year, but there was a jam behind that, but I don't know how many of them are there. That's really a question for the recorder. We are getting some coming through. But I don't know, there's no way for me to know what the backlog looks like.
So the process, as I understand it, is that a person applies, the mayor then reviews it and puts it into the council agenda as a consent item. Is that right? Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's the gist of it. The chair of the commission is CC'd on the application from the recorder, as is the council liaison, and I think often the staff person, the staff liaison. The council liaison can call and talk to that person, as can the chair, and then let the mayor know if they are in support of that appointment. But the mayor then is supposed to contact the person, have a conversation with them, and make the final decision about whether or not to bring them forward. But when they are brought forward, James, you're correct that they do come in on the consent agenda, and usually that's where they stay.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
It would be nice if we could kind of have two parallel efforts. I can work on talking to the school district, but it would be great if the mayor could also move forward and have her interview with Kate so that we can kind of move both pieces together. And I can contact her and see if she'll do that.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Kate's not considered the school district slot. is-
Oh, no, but I was going to ask and see if they would consider having Anya in that slot, since they haven't been putting someone forward in that slot that could be a voting member anyway. Or we could also ask the council to create a new student-held seat, which also would be a non-voting seat. Stu.
I think probably the simplest thing to do would be to just ask ASD if they'll assign Anya as their rep.
Yeah.
And then that way it's just a decision that they're making, which we've asked them to do and they haven't been able to in the past. So maybe this is a good in between.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, any other announcements? Yeah, Brian.
There's a conservation issue that's going to be in front of city council on next Tuesday related to the transfer potentially of sewage from Ashland to Medford that would dewater Bear Creek. And I can talk to people offline about that, but I see that we have 30 minutes for Ashland Solar Cooperative presentation, and I know Jim Hartman's not planning on that today.
Yeah, we have that extra 30 minutes today. So we could take up that topic and discuss it for a little while.
Okay,
Do you want to do that?
sure.
Okay. Okay, any other announcements? All right, and do we have any reports from members of other commissions? I don't think we do. Do we have any public forum today?
No, I didn't get any.
Okay. Okay, great. So this was the first month that I put together the agenda without the help of Elizabeth, and I already messed it up because I put next month's agenda item of the solar cooperative presentation on this month's agenda. So I apologize for that. It does give us an extra 30 minutes, but we do have other things we want to cover. And there was some tight timing down below for discussion of our subgroups. So I was hoping to pick up some of that time and use it in that way. But why don't we have a 10-minute discussion of the topic that you wanted to discuss, Brian, about the diversion of the sewage over to Medford? Would 10 minutes be enough?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So at the last council meeting, there was going to be discussion on the issue that's been brought forth by, I believe, Councilor Moran about the potential of transferring Ashland sewage to Medford. And the Medford treatment plant is needing to undergo some upgrades. They're in trouble for pollution of the Rogue River with high coliform counts below their where they dump it near Dodge or near Tuvell Park. I don't exactly know the reason for consideration of the transfer, but I don't think it's a good idea. In the summer and fall months, a significant proportion, probably up to 50% of the volume of Bear Creek water below Ashland Creek, where it comes into Bear Creek, is from treated effluent from our sewage treatment plant. It's not perfect water, but it is volume that otherwise wouldn't be in the creek. And it's very important for the survival of salmon and steelhead. Salmon and steelhead smolt numbers have been documented to go up in the last 20 years. So I think this would be an environmental disaster. During this summer, there was about 2 to 5 cubic feet per second of flow coming into Bear Creek from Emigrant Lake that was sustained even as low as Emigrant Lake was. But if Emigrant Lake, because of drought in future summers, becomes a dead pool, that volume will essentially go to nothing. About 2 cubic feet per second comes out of the treatment plant. So in the summer and fall months, the treatment plant can make up to half of the volume of Bear Creek when water is reaching Bear Creek at the level of the treatment plant from Emigrant Lake, which isn't a guarantee to continue to happen in the future. If water had to be pumped or sewage had to be pumped to Medford, it actually has to be pumped to Talent before gravity could really take over. So there's increased use of fossil fuel. If the treatment plant contribution to Bear Creek goes down, that water, or there are senior water rights downstream of Ashland that are senior to Ashland's water right, and Ashland would likely have to supplant Bear Creek flow with increased discharges from Reeder Reservoir, which compromises our drinking water. And our second source of drinking water is TID, which probably may not be available in future summers like it was not this summer. And then we would have to rely upon the TAP system, which would require fossil fuel because the energy to pump that tap water to Ashland from Medford would be Pacific Power Energy predominantly, which has a high fossil fuel footprint compared to Ashland Power, which is Bonneville and is hydro for the most part. The cost of even evaluating this project, as Medford looks at evaluating their whole sewage system, they would charge Ashland around $232,000. I understand Tanya could maybe correct me on that, but the total cost just to study the project somewhere probably between $400,000 and $500,000. The project cost would be around $40 million if it were in fact done, not including the cost of decommissioning the current plant. Scott Fleury from city staff, who I think is the head of the water issues now, is not really in favor of this, as I understand it from direct communications I've had with him. Mr. Van Dyke, who is the State of Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife regional biologist, is very much against this plan because of concerns of damage to salmonids in Bear Creek. So this is a very poor plan. Other commissions, including the Wildfire Safety Commission, as a commission have decided to oppose this. And I'm just wondering if as a commission, I'm certainly going to do it as a private citizen, but I would like to make a motion after discussion that as a commission, we vote against this plan.
Okay, I see Risa's hand up and then James.
Yes, I guess I need a little background information, because last I heard, we have a wastewater treatment plant that is functioning, and all I know is that there have been some discussions about a need to upgrade it, but this proposal from Councilor Moran to transport our sewage to Medford from where I'm sitting out of ignorance is a huge leap. And I'm just wondering, like, how did we get to this place? Or is I mean, how serious is this proposal? And is it something that we need to react to quickly? That I'm just in the dark.
I wonder if Tanya would be the best to answer that.
Sure. So assuming that it remains on the agenda, which I expect it to for next Tuesday, council will vote whether or not to allocate the funding to look into this, which is in that $400,000 and $450,000 range, maybe even higher, between the two studies that have to be done. One, of course, is adding the $232,000 that Brian mentioned to the existing investigation that is happening by the Medford Water Treatment Facility, adding money to their work that they're doing with engineers so that the impact of Ashland sewage could be included in their assessment. That's $232,000 of it, but the rest of it is basically a much wider assessment of what is the impact to the environment, to the community, to all sorts of things. We're expecting that to be at least another $200,000. So council is expected to vote on this, assuming that there's a motion put forward to approve it.
Okay, and I'm going to move to James and then Bex.
You're on mute, James.
Tonya or Brian, or both of you, it's Councilor Moran that's putting this forward. Has there been, what's the key argument in favor of doing this?
His understanding, I believe, is that this would save Ashland ratepayers money over the long term. That's what I've heard in terms of why he wanted to look at it in the first place, and what the motivation is behind it.
Okay.
We pay higher sewage rates than Medford does.
Okay, got it. So Brian, you were saying that the discharge that we would forego as a result of sending the sewage down to Medford would be at a cost of reducing the amount of water in the Bear Creek that had down creek water rights. Is that correct?
Right, so the plan is to forego sewage treatment in Ashland. So instead of putting treated sewage water into Bear Creek at the plant, untreated sewage would be pumped to Medford to be treated. And that would decrease water volume downstream, and folks or entities that hold senior water rights would be entitled to get water, and that may have to be supplanted from Reeder Reservoir.
Okay, that argument is mystifying to me because originally the city of Ashland proposed that the 846 acres across the freeway would be where they would spray effluent. And I never heard an argument that it would affect downstream water rights as a result of not having the water. Otherwise, what I'm hearing from you, I really appreciate and support what you're saying. I would want to see more of an argument from Moran to understand, the implications of this. If it's purely monetary, I'd like to see that and know why it makes sense to do that from his perspective.
The water rights issue came to me. I sit on the board of Water Watch of Oregon, and one of our board members who recently retired as the lead attorney for Water Watch of Oregon brought that to my attention, and Bob Hunter, probably understands Oregon water law better than anybody.
Okay.
And one other thing I didn't mention is that there would, I think, potentially be an issue regarding ESA issues if coho salmon, which are federally protected and listed, became endangered, and there are known to be coho salmon in the downstream parts of Bear Creek.
Bex?
Yeah, it's similar along the same theme as Risa and James. I don't understand where we've gone from here to over there somewhere. There seems to be a massive gap in the actual framing of this before we look into the feasibility of it. So I would be far more interested in understanding the framing of it, what the arguments are for and against looking at this, and pumping waste untreated sewage, the energy and the cost. So the climate change impact of that and the cost of that has to be factored into the rates here, because I can't understand if that would make any difference to the cost, and least of all is anywhere in line with our climate change plan. And we need to look at resilience, local, in terms of what we're doing here. This, I can't even wrap my head around this proposal. I would love to see more information on it before the city is committing to spending money to look at the feasibility of something.
Well,
Yeah,
that's why I think we should oppose it now. I guess maybe to Risa's point, I don't exactly know the arguments for how we're sitting in this place fighting it.
It's been brought in front of the council because a councillor believes that they will, that the Ashland ratepayers in the long run will pay less money if we move our waste to Medford, and it would take the city out of the job of meeting ever more increasingly difficult water quality requirements. Right, so the difficulty, Bex, is that there's no answer for your questions yet, because that's the point of the feasibility study. So the question is, the way I read the question to council is, are there enough potential benefits if it does pencil out, that we should invest in really the work to find out if that's a good idea?
okay.
Okay,
I think my input is just that, I mean, basic sustainability to me is kind of living within your means, right? Within your footprint. And if we start, we're already importing now our water from Medford, and if we start exporting our sewage, it just, to me, it overall feels like we are handing over our own environmental problems to someone that maybe doesn't even manage them as well as we would at home. So I just don't even like the concept of it. And it doesn't seem to fit with the sustainability that Ashland has always promoted as for its citizenry. So I guess that's where I am on it. And I'm wondering if we should then just put together a letter that shows that, you know, unless there's a more complete argument for why we would do this besides just money, that we would oppose moving this forward at this time. Risa and then Brian.
Yeah, I guess I really question the value of spending precious resources to determine the feasibility of something that is moronic.
Okay. Brian.
And I just think
No
that
pun intended.
it's against the spirit of the SEEP, and even if there could be proven to be some long-term minor benefit to the ratepayers, we would lose control of controlling those rates if Medford controlled it.
Right.
And there's just the SEEP issues. I mean, water is part of the SEEP, and, you know, protecting our streams and keeping our water here instead of sending it away. And then the idea of pumping downstream sewage and then pumping tap water back upstream, that is going to require dirty Pacific Power electricity to do that. It just goes against, in my mind, the SEEP. And you know, the city council is tasked with their own vote of a couple years ago to consider the SEEP in every decision, and it just seems like this is a non-starter to me.
Okay. So I would be willing to put together a letter with you, Brian, and then get that out to council.
So should we take are we wanting to take a stand that the CCOC is against this idea?
I would like, because it's something Tanya just explained there, that the idea hasn't been approved. It's the proposal to do a feasibility into it. So I actually am more interested in what we're spending on that feasibility, and is there a different way of looking at this if there are other proposals or ways of doing it, because it seems to be a huge amount of resource going into the feasibility of something and pumping upstream. Yes, I'm 100% against that idea. It just seems like an absolute no-brainer, and I can see what the results of the feasibility study are. It doesn't take much to work that one out, but I don't want to I'd rather tackle spending that much money on a feasibility study to begin with. Like, where is this? Can we have a letter about where this idea has come from? What arguments being put forward that even we want to look at this as a feasibility study?
James.
Tanya, well, first of all, I oppose it as well. I mean, it seems clearly moronic, so to speak. Risa's words, not mine. And I just wonder, Tonya, it seems as though a proposal like this is so far out that the city council would go, why are you talking about this? And what value will the letter that we would put out, what influence could the letter that we put out do to city council? Because does it go to city council itself right away before this thing next week, or what? I mean, I don't know what value we would have, what value our input at this point would have on changing that outcome.
So a letter from a commission chair does go, they would send it to council, the council email address, which would go out to all councilors and the mayor. And I think that when we're talking about major infrastructural investments like this, it's good to hear from anybody who has an opinion. And certainly any commissions, commissions are put in place to advise the council. And everybody sort of, everybody's got each commission has their own view in terms of, or their own sort of profile of what types of issues they're going to advise the council on. But certainly as a councilor, if a commission has a strong opinion one way or the other about an issue, that means something to me when I get those letters. So I would, I encourage anybody who has an opinion about, especially about these really big issues, to put them forward.
Thank you.
Brian.
At the last council meeting, they were going to it was scheduled to discuss and have public comment and vote on this. And then it was put forth to delay that pending review by city staff. And I'm wondering, Stu, were you asked as a city staff member to weigh in on the SEEP impacts of this?
Not directly, but I did already have conversation with Scott and Tanya about it as well. The Climate Policy Commission made a motion about it at their last meeting, essentially that if city council goes ahead with the feasibility study, to make sure that climate is a major consideration, which is not the same as saying don't do the feasibility study. So yeah, I've had limited involvement.
And then Tanya, the feasibility, we're saying to study it's somewhere between 400,000 and 500,000, right?
Yeah, probably 450 to 500. Sorry.
So, does anyone want to make a motion on this and specific to us submitting the letter saying that we don't support the moving forward of the feasibility study and, that it doesn't fit with our sustainability values, that it doesn't fit with the SEEP, and kind of a short bullet list of the points that we've talked about here. Yeah, Brian.
I make a motion that for environmental and economic reasons that we as a CCOC vote to not support moving ahead with a $450,000 feasibility study on the plan to send Ashland sewage to Medford for treatment.
I second that.
I'll second
motion.
that.
Okay, so we have Brian made a motion and Beck seconded, and Risa.
I just would like to ask Tanya what she thinks about what, if she has any input to our submission.
The only thing that I would say is that, you know, this commission is the commission that is, of all of our commissions, primarily tasked with conservation. And so, you know, I think the council would be particularly interested in your thoughts around conservation and climate. So, you know, that's what I would add to it. And I just also want to let folks know, I went ahead and put a little primer together for the council to help them understand the difference between adaptation and mitigation, and how those concepts might be looked at, how this project might be looked at through those concepts. And so I've put something forward to help counselors think about the climate ramifications, because the first time this came in front of us, we had some counselors say, you know, well, this would be great because it would help our mitigation goals, because now this energy is being used in Medford and not in Ashland. You know, and so it seemed like there was an opportunity for some education, and we all know different amounts about different things. And so I rely on other counselors to bring me specific information about the commissions that they serve on when there's an educational need for that I need to understand something better. So I put that out to folks. So they have that, and you know, but I think it's also just helpful to hear from commissions if commissions have an opinion.
Okay. And I just wanted to check in. Anya, did you have anything that you wanted to add? And there's no pressure. I just wanted to give you a chance.
I don't think so. I like hearing what everyone has to say, though. Everyone's pretty much asked the questions that I had, but thank you for checking in.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Marnie, for allowing discussion on this.
Yeah, no, this is really important. I really appreciate that you brought this to all of us and the information behind it, because I had seen it kind of discussed, but I didn't know enough about it to feel like I had a sound opinion. Okay, so I'm happy to put together the letter, and then does anyone want to have input on it just so that we have enough eyes on it to make sure it reflects this commission's?
I'd be happy to look at it and send it back. Any comments to you?
Okay, Brian and James, I saw your hand up.
Yeah. Before the vote, we're technically supposed to have another discussion. So I just want to ask the question about the points we're going to make. And I'm happy to have that input as well. Brian, you brought up a number of points that I would like to be able to see outlined in bullet points in that letter so that I could look at them and kind of run through them in my mind in terms of how much that makes sense or not to at this point in time as far as arguments, because our focus is on conservation, and that could include downstream water rights, you know, conservation of water for that purpose. So
If you want, I could, Marnie, since I have these kind of points outlined for a presentation I was going to make to City Hall Council, I could send it to you and you could amend it and then send it back to James and myself.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so given that discussion, does anyone else have any other pieces they want to discuss? Stu.
Just please be mindful of not deliberating outside the meeting or having more than a quorum work on that letter, please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Okay, I will get that done. And let's see, today is Wednesday. You said the meeting is on Tuesday. So,
Is it part of the study session on Monday? Tanya?
No, on Monday, there's a conversation about potentially contracting the management of the wastewater treatment facility, and whether that's something for us to look into from a cost saving space, which is different. It would keep all of the facilities where they are right now, but that's the question in front of this. The study session is going to be having a discussion about potentially contracting that out. But the conversation about moving the sewage, the wastewater, is on Tuesday. And the decision about the study is on Tuesday.
Marnie, would you please text me when you've emailed me that copy, because I get it then. Sometimes I really miss my email. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I'll do that. And it sounds like we need a quick turnaround. So if we get it out by Friday, is that a reasonable time frame for both of you?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds like plan. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you all for that. Thank you.
So next on the agenda is the council update.
Yes. Well, aside from the wastewater treatment facility, what have we got? Council did sign on to the Race to Zero pledge with that should allow Stu to have some more resources in terms of implementing the SEEP, more informational resources. And Stu, I'm happy to have you jump in and talk about what that looks like. But the council did pass that 4-2, and then I believe it was 4-2. And then what else is happening in front of council at the moment? You know, the bulk of what we're looking at right now is the general fund distributions. You'll see that we're doing a variety of sort of ongoing work at the council, but a lot of our study sessions are looking at what kind of services do we offer through the general fund, and what might we do to deal with essentially a structural shortfall financially in the general fund. So we are looking to have some listening sessions later in November. And so I'm just encouraging all commissioners and residents to take part in those. And then we're also working to develop a community-wide survey that would happen early in the year next year, once we have a little bit better sense of what our options might be. But clearly, you know, climate and conservation are likely to be part of that conversation on some level in terms of what kind of investments do we want to make in different kinds of services. So just something to think about.
Okay, great. Brian?
Tanya, can you just say briefly again what it was that council voted on and why what the opposition to it was by 2 members?
Sure. So the pledge was requested. Stu actually requested that the mayor sign on behalf of Ashland, so that we could be announced at the COP26 meetings, along with other communities around the world who have agreed to take that challenge. I'm not entirely sure I understand the opposition to it, really. Initially, there was a concern that we had to do everything on the list. But then I explained that you just have to start with something off the list, and we have lots of things in SEEP that qualify. So just implementing SEEP is, you know, kind of puts us right in the target of meeting this pledge. There was some concern that we keep talking about climate at the council level. But yeah, I'm not sure I entirely understand the concern, because we weren't investing money, we weren't committing to investing something that we couldn't see. It was mostly done so that we could stand arm in arm with our other communities, and we could bring some additional resources to bear for Stu and other staff members.
And Bex?
Yeah, just a follow-up question or comment, probably a comment, Tanya, unless you do want to comment following. If there's a comment made that climate's being brought up too much, and we currently have next week for COP26 in Glasgow in Scotland, world leaders discussing basically if we can all come together and actually make commitments that are actually going to save us, our species. This is our future. And so every decision we make has got to start considering climate. And I'm really concerned if suddenly it's like, oh, we're mentioning climate again, because it's part and parcel how our systems work, how everything works. It's the future. And it's our connection to nature. It's how we think about the environment, society, the economics. And if we continue to make decisions that aren't considering that, we're just going to keep having economic impacts locally, nationally, and internationally. And you can see it when you look any reading of a variety of news sources. We see the increase in natural disasters, which is exactly linked to climate change. So I'm a little bit concerned on that? And do we need to do more education around this? I mean, this pledge has come at a time where there is an international conference where they're saying it's the last chance that we're going to be able to do something. I mean, honestly, I think we're past the point. Our focus now is more on adaptation and understanding how we can make decisions and build climate into those decisions so we're not faced with economic costs in the future. And I think we really need to start thinking about this a little bit more seriously. The race to zero is a publicity and a way that cities can come together to highlight that. And so I feel quite worried that in a beautiful town that has faced a lot and also a very well-educated, innovative, creative college town, we're not thinking like this. This is a little bit concerning.
So I would just say that I think in general, our staff is doing quite a good job of looking at the climate angle when they bring things in front of the council. Just from the time when I came on the council about, it was not quite 3 years ago till now, I've really seen a strong integration of climate values and concerns being put forward. When we get our packets, if there's a climate angle to something, we're usually seeing staff's best assessment of what that climate impact is looking like. And so in that way, I think there's been really good forward motion in taking up climate as part of our routine day-to-day operations. I don't understand the argument that climate's been brought in front of the council as specific agenda items too much. You know, the CPC came forward with their report not too long ago, as did this commission, and then of course Stu had his report. But I don't really understand that argument. What I would say is I don't see it coming from staff. I'm not seeing a resistance at the staff level to really try to understand and work with this. Stu, I don't know what you're seeing in that space, but I think it's really, there may very well be a need for additional education and outreach to some of the folks who are being faced with these decisions and may not have a deep enough understanding of the risks that we're undergoing.
That, I think that is apparent. And yeah, my thoughts were in terms of Stu's work, 100% support. I know 100% support that. I know how much he's trying to do around climate here and other stuff. So yeah, I think we do need to think about education here. I think we have a real opportunity in understanding how all systems work and bringing it together. Sorry, Marnie.
That's okay. Risa. And then we
In
have
light of this conversation, it makes me think that this topic could be a great sneak preview article in the near future to just hit the points without strong finger pointing, but just sort of lay out the city's commitment to the Climate Energy Action Plan, the values and the importance, and maybe that could be a venue for bringing up the topic, in a different medium.
Okay, let's follow through on that when we get down to our discussion of the sneak preview, because I like that idea a lot.
I have one more question for Tanya. I was just wondering the timescale on the city manager position.
The application period closed on October 13th, I believe, and so we have all of our applicants. And my understanding is that our existing city manager pro tem, who has a lot of recruitment experience with recruiting firms, he has been working with the mayor, and they've gotten us down, I think, to 4 applicants. And so what we're doing next is putting together the panels. And we did do the contest. We haven't drawn the names yet, but there'll be, I think, 5 names drawn of residents and put together with possibly some other local community members, as well as staff and council members. So those panels are getting put together, and then we should see pretty soon what the more details of that plan, what they look like. I'm hoping to get an update on Tuesday.
Thanks, Tanya.
Risa.
Tanya, I'm just wondering how strong the climate was in the selection process. Like, did it rank anywhere with the mayor and with the pro tem manager? Like,
I don't know. What we did make sure that it was in the job description, that there was a clear commitment to climate in the job description, but I'm not privy to the criteria by which they selected the potential managers that would come forward, you know, this next tier of folks who've made it this far.
thanks.
Okay, next we have staff update, so that would be Stu.
Yes, okay, thank you. So I think I could just tack on to what Tanya said about the city's race to zero. You know, normally when we take something to council, we'll have a little more time ahead to reach out to folks and make sure that they know what's coming. In this case, I didn't ever actually expect it would go to council. So I'm glad that we finally got it through. But initially it had just been a request to the mayor. So I thought it would be an easy ask. But that's important, I think, you know, to show that we're still serious about taking climate action. Also, it provides a lot of nice direction about, you know, methodology and approach and reporting requirements. So as we've gone on, all the communities and businesses and governments that are involved in this are getting more organized as to how they report and how we collect data. So that's actually going to be really helpful when we get around to revising any goals. It prescribes a science-based target and so on. So I think it'll provide some nice guidance when we do get around to updating the climate plan, but there's no urgency that we take those methodologies and use them immediately. Basically, everything that we committed to doing as part of this pledge is already in the climate plan, and we're already started on some of it. So I think it's a nice feather in the cap, and hopefully will provide a little more guidance down the road, as well as hopefully keeping a toe in the leadership pool. So let's see. So another thing I wanted to run by you folks, Council tasked the Climate Policy Commission with reviewing the nuclear free zone ordinance. And I didn't have a chance to put their communication in the packet here because it came out after I put the packet out. But essentially, they're saying there's no need to modify that ordinance at this time. It doesn't prohibit Ashland from using nuclear energy that comes from outside of Ashland, which we do every day, at least in part. So right now they're saying there's no need to spend energy modifying that ordinance. And someday in the future, they make nuclear reactors so small that we want to put one at City Hall, then we can revisit the topic. So I will send that communication out to you folks just so you can see it. I think, or you can look at the Climate Policy Commission meeting agenda coming up. Let's see. Another thing of note, and I'll keep it kind of short, a couple of things that we're hoping to take to the next level in the next few months. You know, I've been working on this home energy score proposal for quite a while, which would essentially ask that everybody who's selling a home, a single family home, has to get a home energy score so that there's more transparency in the market, so people can be enabled to shop for energy efficiency and to create some market forces to recognize our climate goals. So that's pretty exciting. We have a lot of support from the state, and other communities have already done it in Oregon, so it's not getting too far outside the box. A couple of other things that are hopefully going to get to council first half of next year is a proposal to integrate climate considerations more into the agenda, and that's sort of ongoing under development. As well as identifying some road mapping for the municipal fossil gas reductions that are possible. So you can keep an eye out for those. If you have questions, you can just email me after the meeting. We can talk about it. And last thing is I got some notes from Larry. He couldn't be here. He's in the Netherlands apparently. So I will forward his email to you folks and you can read it for yourself. that is all, unless there's any questions.
Brian and Brian, then
Oh,
Rita,
sorry.
sorry.
Hey, Stu, thank you. I'm wondering, have we heard on the USDA grant to have money to help with the induction?
Yeah, it's a good question. I did contact the USDA pretty recently to see what was the status of our loan application. And they are just wrapping up their fiscal year right now. Federal government ends in October. So they basically aren't reviewing the applications until next month. So we have some time still to wait. Once that program comes through, if it comes through, then we should be able to include induction as part of that, certainly. But the city funded induction incentive is still going right now today. So, depending on what stove you have in your house, you can get between $150 and $400 credit from the city if you get an induction. So,
Okay.
Risa.
Yeah, Stu, I was wondering where the city is in the process of hiring a new Elizabeth Taylor.
I couldn't tell you. I imagine that that's going to wait until there's a city manager. There's a temporary person who's filling in for meeting booking and things like this to help Gary. But I haven't heard that a permanent person has been recruited for yet.
Thanks.
All right, great. Thank you, Stu. Let's see. Next, we have the SOU update with Bex.
Thanks, Marty. I think I covered quite a few things last month. So main thing, SOU is working on its 3-year reporting on sustainability, and that's part of the Association of Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education. So we report on this every 3 years. We're currently a silver award campus. So I'm working with departments, faculty, staff, and students from across campus to gather all that information. It covers everything from workforce and well-being through to our energy use, our food and dining. It's really a good way of raising awareness about sustainability across campus, as well as reporting to see how much we have achieved, but then also identifying gaps of where we can improve. I will put one shout out on where we can improve actually, because we were sending our pre-consumer food waste to a farm for some pigs to eat, so redistribution for animals, and that pig farmer is no longer there. So if anyone knows of any pig farmers that would be looking for a steady flow of pre-consumer food waste, then I would be really interested to hear from you. That's a sneaky shout out. And the other update I had, we're in the middle of a presidential search, which is exciting. We've had 5 candidates on campus. The final one is on campus at the moment. And this has been managed very, very well. I've had the absolute privilege and pleasure of meeting all 5 of them and being able to ask about their view around sustainability and climate change in higher education, which is good. I'll take any questions too.
All right, I don't see any questions, but thank you so much for that update. Recology update we're not going to do. Jamie is not here unless there's anything else people want to share regarding Recology. Okay, so we have just a quick discussion that I added around kind of what kinds of presentations we invite to our commission. And I just wanted to discuss what kinds of parameters we want to make sure are included. I kind of realized that, we're a city commission. We can't just kind of invite anyone to speak on any topic. So we should be in agreement of who's speaking and what kinds of qualifications they need to have and what topics we're going to invite. So I would like to start with saying that they need to actually be an expert in the field that they're speaking on. And that would be one of my requirements. I did like with the last presentation that we, discussed kind of how many of us were interested in learning more about it. I think that's also important that we have a majority of us thinking that this is something relevant to our commission specifically. I think that's important So I'm going to throw those two parameters out there, that they're an expert in whatever subject matter they're speaking on, and that the majority of this commission thinks it's relevant. Would anyone like to add anything else? Bex.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Just taking the last speaker as an example, I was so interested in that topic. I was really interested in that topic. And I think some people would consider the person an expert. So I think we have to say, how do we consider them an expert? Because I would definitely not have considered that person an expert. And so it would be good to understand exactly what we mean by the word expert.
Okay. I would say expert comes through education and actual work experience. And those would be kind of the two. There might be another way to gain expertise that I'd be open to hearing, but at the very basic, it has to start with both education and work experience.
Okay.
Again, is anyone else talking about expertise or adding other? Okay, Brian, and then Risa.
I don't know quite how you're going to figure this, because I just want to, and I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate here, but I want to contrast the last speaker who has a real passion for and isn't a nuclear engineer, so to speak, but he has a passion for it and has studied a lot about it. Take away maybe his personality issues, but nevertheless, he's very passionate about it, very committed to studying and sharing information about it. And I think there's a concern that he wasn't, say, a nuclear expert. But then we have a speaker next month who is very passionate about solar energy, but is a retired high school teacher. He's not a solar engineer. And so I just want to, how do you decide then who's qualified? Jim, I love Jim Hartman, who's going to do the solar presentation next week, and he's studied it and he's super passionate about it, but who's going to define who's an expert? And I think, it's a very similar situation that he presents in terms of his commitment as the last speaker to a subject. And, just taking away differences in styles and bombacity, et cetera. But I just ask who's going to be the police here, and how are you going to decide that?
I don't want it to feel like it's being policed in kind of a way that ties our hands too much. I think we are a group of, smart, dedicated people that can kind of tell when there's some gray areas and work through it. With Jim, he actually runs a nonprofit on solar energy. So I think he is actually by profession at this point in his career an expert. We also know he's taught classes on energy and climate change. So he has a lot of long-term and immediate expertise on that topic. I think my complaint with the last speaker was I couldn't trust any of the facts that he was sharing with me because it felt like they just came from someplace in the internet and I didn't know, we live in a town that's full of experts on vaccines and all sorts of things that you can pull facts on all different topics that there's really, to me, unless there's scientific basis, professional background, a reason to trust the information that's being shared. I don't want to waste our time. So I want to know whoever's coming in that at some basic level I can trust what they're telling me. So where that comes from, we're going to have to work that out. Risa.
So my response to your question, Marnie, and Brian's is that maybe it's a combination of different efforts that we make. Part of it is being an expert in the field, having actual experience and education, and adding to that, the CCOC finds the topic relevant. The other thing that I would add is experience as a presenter. That may also help. And what's true is that we can't take a vaccine to ensure that every person that we filter through is going to meet all our expectations. But I think if we can agree to you know, a few parameters that we're discussing now, it will increase our chances of, you know, being more successful than not.
Yeah, I think it's just being mindful that we have a full schedule. We don't want to spend a lot of time listening to presentations that aren't helping us further our goals.
Can I just applaud Risa's vaccine analogy there? On how a vaccine actually works.
Okay, James.
So I wanted to echo a little bit of what Brian was saying, because I've been on the commission for a long time and we've had a lot of different presentations. And from people who sometimes are not experts, but there's a certain requirement for the core human connection that I think I'd like to echo you, Risa, in looking at the capacities for someone to really communicate well. And I don't know how to get through that. You know, you can look at expertise and maybe look for a degree or somebody's passion or whatever, or board they're on or whatever. But to look for, to assess a person's ability to really communicate, number one, and number two, honor the standards that we carry in the city, what I know we carried in the Forest Service in terms of respect. And I don't know how to get around that, but somehow that there's an element of respect that I think it's essential for us to understand from a person presenting before they present. So that's my input. And it's not so much expertise, in my opinion. It's more of, I've met a lot of professors who have very little ability to be respectful of people in general.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, you know, as a commission that, you know, is working towards being more inclusive over time, that respect is really important if we want to further that goal. And so if that respect has to do with gender, race, age, you know, all of the different factors that come in, that we should be very, very mindful of that. So I really appreciate how you stated that, James. Okay, so I have kind of 4 bullets that we want to include. Brian, anything else?
I just want us to think about, like, when we think of Jim Hartman, he's well known to us and we understand where he's coming from and that he has a lot of good things to say that are important for us to hear. And so he's kind of an invited speaker. But I think, as with the last speaker, there's going to be more and more situations where climate is really, hopefully, finally really becoming to the forefront of more people's consciousness, and they're organizing into all kinds of groups and subgroups in our community. And they're going to approach us as, you know, represent, you know, there will be groups of 20 or 30 individuals that have an idea about something, and they're going to ask to present to us, and we have to think about who we're going to listen to and what criteria for them to make a presentation, you know, outside a public forum.
Anya?
Yeah, I'm just wondering about like previewing the presentations and if that works, like having someone in the commission watch part of it before, something like that. Is that something that we're allowed to do?
Yeah, definitely. And it seems like that might be a good, another good step to take, is whichever one of us is recommending the speaker takes the time to really make sure that they understand what they're going to speak about. And I don't know if that's a full preview of the whole presentation, which would be great. And the best way to do that is if it's already being given for another group like SOCAN or something. And then alternatively asking to see their slides and just walk it through them with them beforehand. That would also be helpful. Thank you. Okay, I think we have a good list. Does everyone feel like that's pretty comprehensive? If anything else comes up later, we can add to it. I just wanted to go over that and just make sure we're a little bit on the same page of our expectations for the quality of what it is we're spending our time on. Thank you for that. Risa?
Well, just a process question. Is it the kind of thing that, you know, we write up, we vote on, we commit ourselves to, or is it more informal? You know.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer, but I just.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't feeling like it needed a vote. It's more a general understanding amongst ourselves of how we function. But if anyone feels like there's a reason to vote on it, I'm open to that too. Bex?
I would support what you're just saying, Marnie. I would prefer it to have been this informal discussion than something we have to vote and formalize.
Okay. And then one thing to remember too is as we get new members to fill them in on, you know, this type of an agreement. And, you know, I'm hoping at some point we do have a retreat and we'll probably talk about other types of agreements as well. And we can maybe type those up. So there's a little packet of them and this could be included in that. Yeah, Risa.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to be like all rigid about it, but at the same time, just wanting to be able to have an easy way to pass information forward into the future so that each, you know, every 2 years or, you know, whenever that, once upon a time, this commission like had more guidance, more guidelines than we currently do. I don't know that I'm not necessarily recommending, you know, that we sign it and make a pledge, but somehow to have, what is it called? Knowledge, values that we want to pass on in an easy way, not, you know, we don't have to wear t-shirts or get a tattoo, but, you know, just some way to have consistency so that we don't have to recreate the wheel every, you know.
Yeah, I know we have some agreements that we've made in the past and those have been written up. You know, obviously with goals and objectives, but those are now passed. So I don't think those are necessarily guiding us at this point. I don't know where that stuff lives. So yeah.
We probably have it on the hard drive, but everything should also be in the minutes online. So if you can search for a lot of that stuff where I can track it down if needed.
Okay, I can look for definitely our agreements that we've made, and maybe I can start just a little packet that hopefully we could continue to pass on from group to group, so it has a little bit more long-term life to it. James?
Just real quick, the agreements thing is really excellent. We review it, we take a look at it, and if we were to provide it to every presenter wannabe and have them agree on those tenets, then they would then be held responsible if they were not abiding to those agreements.
I like that because it means we're taking our values and we're kind of actually expanding them out to other people that interact with us. So I think that's a great idea. And I can type something up to go with that. Okay, great. Thank you for this discussion. This was really helpful. Next, we have the progress reports from our small groups. And basically the groups kind of informally met over the last month. And I just wanted to go ahead and report on those. The notes, the subgroup 3 notes that are on the agenda are actually the subgroup 1 notes, just so you know. So we have the first group, and I'm just going to share with you how I was considering these. The first group to me is the Bridget group, because we're trying to continue what Bridget was doing. And the second group to me is the Marian group, because we're continuing basically Marion's legacy of really trying to move some things forward and do the outreach that needs to be done. I don't know what the subgroup 3 is, but it's also important, and we talked a little bit more about it today. So subgroup 1 is the SEEP implementation support. So this is basically the things that Stu needs help with, and how we get information out there. So the subgroup 1 notes are on the subgroup 3 link, if you click on that. And Brian, yeah.
As I understood it, on the subgroup 1 at this time from your communication to everybody, we are just waiting for Stu to give us direction through you, right?
Well, so what happened with subgroup 1 is I talked to Stu, and Stu gave us 4 different kind of priorities. And then I shared those with the group to see who wanted to do what. So we have the 4 priorities include getting the word out on induction stoves, getting the word out on heat pump water heaters, trying to get 20 to 30 more folks to sign up for the electric vehicle incentives, and also the installation of the chargers. And then also we have on the list integrating among the different commissions so that there's some messaging coming out for like Facebook and online portals that the city uses, so that Stu has kind of regular content that he can just pull from and easily get out there. So I've heard from you, Brian, that you would be interested in quite a few of those, which was great. And that sometime in the near future, you can start to work on some of those. So that would be kind of the next step. So what I was looking for right now is for folks to maybe let us know what their next steps are in moving these items forward. And if there's anyone that hasn't put their name forward for some of these from group 1. So right now I'm just talking about group 1, which was James, Brian, and Larry. And I'm still kind of just the interface between Stu and you guys, so that he doesn't have to deal with a lot of different voices, if that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to go James and then Brian.
So Marnie, I did reply to you. I guess maybe you didn't see it, or maybe I didn't really.
It's just after the notes went out that you,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, all right. So you got that input. You'll add that in there.
I haven't looked at it yet. So if you want to tell me what it was, that'd be great.
Oh, well, I was interested in joining on the electric vehicles, where if I were to contact businesses, for instance, it might be valuable to also talk about heat pump water heaters in those businesses as well. So it could be a dual thing. If I were to go out to businesses and talk to them, could talk about those 2 things, and also induction stoves for all that matters. I mean, any business that's being visited, depending on what they do in that business, if it's a restaurant, then induction stoves could be a 3rd component to that. So those were the 2, plus maybe number 1 in restaurant kind of businesses or that kind of thing.
That sounds good. So so you and I can connect and talk about how to further that outreach to businesses. And I can also interface with Stu to figure out specifically what materials are available to do that.
Because at one point with our EVA program, you and I went to a variety of businesses and evaluated whether we thought that might be of value for them to put in electric chargers and so forth. So that the EVA study that we did before could augment what we know already about the businesses we contacted or didn't, what they've done, do a little follow-up, and maybe check in with them and see if they are interested in doing the next step. Yeah, so.
Okay, great. Yeah, Brian.
And so I'm just like, say for the induction stoves as it pertains to consumers, for me and for my workload and for trying to help out with this at this point, from what I understand from your letter, it works best, and I understanding and appreciating Stu's workload. It works best for Stu to communicate to you, Marnie, what needs to be done and what help he needs, and then you would let me know.
I'm not sure what the best way to make that work is. I mean, I think what happened right now is Stu gave me a list of things and said, these are the things that people could work on. So now that you've said, I want to work on the induction stoves, maybe if Stu has information, and I should let Stu speak, has information to send you directly, that's fine. I don't need to be in the middle of every conversation, but we didn't want to have this whole discussion plus the last one and have Stu have to run all of that. So I was trying to kind of organize things better before any sort of handing over to Stu.
Yeah, thanks.
Stu, did you have any input there that you wanted to share?
Just briefly, I guess, part of my goal here is to have folks working on the same thing over time so that we're not scrambling every meeting to figure out who's got which ball. And if one person just has one program, that might feel like you're not doing everything, but it's easier to report on at least, and we know who's the point of contact for that. So, you know, I don't want to put limits on what's possible here, but I think for my purposes, just knowing that, say Marnie's working on this program, and I can ask her if there's, you know, who's she talked to in the last month. That's helpful.
Okay. Bex.
Yeah, it's just an observation between 1 and 2. So I enjoyed reading the notes on subgroup 1. The notes are like quite topic based, and then on subgroup 2 for the outreach framework, it's the methods and mechanisms to reach people. And a lot of that comes through in terms of the topics, because you're going to have to use those methods and mechanisms to reach people.
Yeah.
So then it's like, well, for each topic, what's the best method and mechanism? Who's the target audience? And to actually have an outreach strategy for each of those topics with, say, one person owning it. So for me, there's a lot of lap over, because number 2, in terms of the actual outreach framework, it's talking about the theory and the mechanisms. But 1 is talking about the actual content and then deploying some of those mechanisms. So it's like, how do we, eventually we want to get to a point, like Stu says, I really like that idea. You have one person with the topic and they understand how our framework, our strategy works. You know your target audience, you know your mechanism that you would use, whether it's the city's Facebook, whether it's just writing the content for sneak preview or something like that. So I was just thinking, for me, I'm not understanding the aim. Yeah, I wouldn't mind hearing more about 2, and we haven't got to 2 yet, but I just see a lot of, 1 is taking it from a topic point of view and 1 is taking it from a mechanism point of view, and actually it's probably going to end up being the same thing.
Yeah, so
Content.
I think what's helpful right now is we have a group that's saying, okay, what are all the different ways that we can reach people? And, you know, some of those, like, let's think a little broader, let's think of some new and creative ways, let's pay attention to what other cities are doing and pull some of those in. Sorry, it's a little loud here. And so there's a group kind of organizing a lot of that, but now it's really helpful to know, okay, we know Brian is going to be doing some outreach on induction stoves. So let's work with Brian on that topic. Let's figure out what some of the best outreach methods are. We'll help develop those 3 things that we think are best for this topic. And that way we're working, you know, more in a more organized way, and then more closely together across topics. So I think hopefully we can move that model forward, and I'm completely open to suggestions of you know, ways to streamline that, but that's where we are right now. So we do have then Brian's name next to induction stoves and the heat pump water heaters, you know, and just even moving one of those forward would be great. We have James's name next to electric vehicles. And I know Larry's open to working on any of those as well. So this group can move forward. I'm gonna go now to group number 2. And I'm kind of just assuming people are clicking on this on their own computers rather than sharing my screen, but let me know if I need to share my screen. So for group number 2, we brainstormed just kind of what all of the different outreach type actions are. And let's see if I can read my own stuff here. Okay, so there's a list. I'm not going to read through it, but there were, you know, ways to do things in person. There were ways to do things online. There were kind of physical structures that could be involved in getting messages out there. Different populations to pull in. So bringing in groups of young people in order to speak to businesses, maybe about energy, about electric vehicles, about whatever topic it is that we're trying to address. We talked about radio shows and TV spots, and you know, expanding our written media, which is another option. There's been definitely some discussions about taking our sneak preview article and expanding that to other groups. So we get more voices coming out of that article rather than just us kind of recycling through our voices. And then partnering even with other groups like Road Climate and ARDCAT, SOHIVA. And those are some of the main things at this point that have been talked about. We're going to refine this list, and then what we'll do is work with people individually on the specific topics that we're prioritizing at the moment. Does that make sense, James?
So I have a question regarding what one of the points you made was reaching out to businesses. I don't see it in the notes there. And in relationship to group one, these are very specific activities that we're tasked to undertake. And then part of it is outreach. The outreach can be in any one of the venues, the things you mentioned in subgroup 2, to be able to get the information out there. So it seems redundant to me to have outreach group number 1 operating independently of, the group 1 operating independently of this outreach methods group, unless you're just defining the methods for outreach and not actually doing the outreach itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so we're trying to kind of create a whole framework for outreach. What would that include? What kinds of outreach do we do? What do we know how to do well, and what do we still need to learn how to do better? And then who do we need to partner with, or where, getting outside of just our individuals, how do we do even larger outreach? Who would we work with to do that? Are there ways to get more creative with it with art or other ways of getting messages out there? So this is an outreach framework group. And as we move further, we will be reporting back to all of you what we're learning. But specifically then I want it to overlap with, like, group 1 has specific tasks. So we want to work with you on how do you do outreach to businesses. If you're talking about electric vehicles, is there help that you need? Do you need any sort of materials to go with that? I think that's where the groups are going to start working together.
Okay, I can see that. Then I would be wanting to reach out immediately to this group.
Okay.
Because if you're going to be,
The next step.
have that expertise, I want to tap into it and
Okay.
not just try and do this on my own.
Sounds good. Yeah, and I think that's ways that we have these different groups, but we're also like individually going to cross over in many different ways. So I might say, oh, James, you should talk to Anya because she has this great group of young people that, is willing to do A, B, and C or something like that. We're going to have lots of ways that we're going to be working together, but we're just trying to do it in an organized way. Risa and then Brian.
I just got an image in my mind that group 2 is kind of like the old-fashioned telephone operators, that are sitting and they just connect. They know where everyone is and just help to plug people in so that they can better communicate with each other. It's kind of, sorry, that's just where my mind went, and I just trying to, wrap my head around, because we're conceptualizing a framework to help us so that we can stop talking about all this stuff and actually do it. And, having that framework, having that medium for plugging in different ways on different topics, I think in theory could be really helpful.
Great. Thank you.
I think, sorry.
I think Brian had his hand up and then Bex. Thank you.
I've been involved in the last couple months with meetings with the chairs of various commissions pertaining to the SEEP, in particular transportation, the CPC, our group, and Marnie's been at some of those meetings, and the Wildlife and Safety Commission. And then there's an invite out for a meeting next month and basically inviting other commissions, including housing and social equity, to just kind of for the various commissions to be in sync with each other on the SEEP. And in the last couple meetings, I've been continually kind of pushed by some of the other members that they would like to have access to the sneak preview. Like CPC might want to put out a report to the community on what is the CPC doing. And the Wildlife and Safety Commission specifically in late spring or early summer would like to do something on fire safety. And the Transportation Commission would like to do something on the zero plan and different things. And so I'm just wondering how that fits into it. And I was tasked with bringing those comments from the other commissions to our group since we kind of manage the sneak preview. And I'm just wondering what to take back to them.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It kind of fits in this topic, and then it also fits in our sneak preview discussion where I discuss inviting other commissions as well. So we can definitely invite them to have certain columns. And I think what we should do is, as we talk through the schedule, just decide where they fit and then invite them to fill that slot on certain topics. Because it is something we control, I think we should think about, what the topic is. So if they express an interest in talking about a certain topic that fits in with what we do, that makes a lot of sense. So at this point, we definitely have room in the schedule. And so maybe we want to schedule in right now, like March would be the Climate Policy Commission, and maybe closer to the summer, May or June would be the Wildfire Commission, something like that. But that part of the discussion we can save for when we get to the sneak preview.
So will sneak preview be handled like figuring that schedule? Do you anticipate the way we've always done it, or do you think that will be in the purview now of this group too?
Oh, no, I think it's still how we've always done it. And it's still going to, right now, Jamie's the one that organizes it. It's just because she's not here. So I'm
Okay.
bringing that up.
So in terms of in 2 weeks, when I meet with this group again, I should just say we're working on it.
Well, let's discuss inviting them and then give them actual slots and then invite them and say, hey, would you guys like the March article? So the March article right now, we have it to be determined, and that would be due for the packet in January. So we could let them know.
If you're there or I'm there, is one of us then empowered to invite one of these groups to do the March sneak preview article with us editing it or reviewing it with them?
Yeah, we are empowered to do that, but let's wait until we get to that part of the discussion.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. And then Bex, did you have something, or am I forgetting? Sorry.
Yeah, I did, but it's okay. Carry on.
Are you sure?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, so for the subgroups, if folks want to meet again soon, that would be great. I would say within the next 2 weeks. And if we could try and meet as subgroups at least twice in between the meetings, I think that we'd get a lot more done. I don't want to be arranging every single meeting. And so if the subgroups could pick someone to make that happen, that would be really helpful to me.
Could sorry,
yeah.
I do have one thing. What is subgroup 3? It's got my name next to it, and I hadn't volunteered for this, and I don't know what it is.
Oh, okay. I thought you did, but I might have gotten that wrong when we were going through and choosing what we wanted to be involved in. So there's been some need for kind of this coordination amongst different commissions, just people having a better understanding of how different commissions are affected by the SEEP. It seems to be in flux of whether that's a need or not. So, I've been busy with the other groups, so I haven't moved anything forward there. We can take it off for now and just see if there's a need for it in the future. There's been quite a few times where I've been asked if we could please, especially join with the CPC and help people understand how the SEEP interacts with all of the different commissions and what they're doing.
I'd
Yeah,
be happy, like, for me, the audience would be wider than commissions, particularly with what Tanya was explaining earlier. So, I mean, could that actually be one of our topics to go in implementation support, and we work with CPC, and then we plug in to subgroup 2 in terms of what you're calling the framework, which is more the lists of tools and mechanisms, and we understand who our target audience is for that. I mean, that seems just a very general climate change outreach. I definitely want to work with the CPC on that quite closely.
Okay.
Though. But I don't see it as another subgroup. I don't know, maybe it's part
okay.
of the
So
system.
I think the reason for that is just that we can't have groups that are bigger than quorum. So that's why we have 3 groups instead of throwing, and we can't fit you into subgroup 1. Even though they fully overlap. So let's keep that in mind and try and move that piece forward that you just outlined there, because I think
Okay.
that's important.
Is 4 a quorum?
More than 4 is a quorum. Stu.
Well,
I was just saying 5. 5 is quorum.
Okay.
5 is quorum. It kind of like doesn't make sense to me, although we're under these rules. It doesn't make sense to me that there's group number 1 that has specific things we're undertaking, that group number 2 wouldn't undertake as focused attention. In other words, why isn't group 2 paying focused attention on the 4 priorities that are in group number 1?
You know, it will. It's just at this time we were thinking bigger of like, let's start with what are all of our tools and what are we good at? Because we only have limited tools that we are good at because of our age, because of the, who our friend groups are. And there are a lot of things that either we're not very good at that we could get better at, or that we want to pull in some partners to make things happen. So it was a really valuable discussion to talk about what the tools are without the specific topics, but that is just the first step. Later it's, definitely connecting with those specific topics and getting people to talk across.
Yeah, because if I'm going to really take on, say, the EV issue,
Mhm.
I want to interface with group number 2
Oh,
right
definitely.
off the bat. But that makes 5 of us.
Well, you can interface with a couple people from group number 2. We'll mix and match, because some of us are better or more knowledgeable about certain things. So we'll figure it out. But right now, this is just how we're doing it because we have to move forward. So if you want to do outreach on EVs and you ask one of us who would be best to talk to about that, we'll work that out and we'll move that all forward, and we'll get you kind of the materials you need or the tools that you need, or we'll join you. We're trying to move more than just that list of 3 things forward, something bigger. So we have it all ready in our back pocket as soon as we need it, as far as the tools. I hope that made sense. We're going to figure it out as we go. Bex?
So you said I can't go in 1, but 2 has 4. So I can go in 1 with the topic of general climate change and then work with others on that.
Well, the topic of general climate change really is group number 3. And I'm happy to work with you on that, or you can, if there's other people you want to work with on that.
Can we rename group number 3 then? So actually just call it climate change general awareness.
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay,
Perfect.
great. Brian, you're still in there.
I'm okay.
Okay, anything else on this topic, or can we move forward?
But
Yeah, Brian, sorry.
I'm just wondering, I mean, Marnie, you talked about having, subgroup meetings, and quite honestly, I'm just not, I don't want to have a meeting just to have a meeting. I'm just trying to think like what we're like, I'm waiting, wanting to get more information on induction and stuff, but I don't want to have a meeting just to have a meeting. So.
Okay, but who do you need to talk to get more information on induction?
Well, I need to educate myself on what's on the city's website for one.
Okay.
And then, probably at some point have a conversation with Stu when it's convenient for him.
Okay.
Um,
So
But-
let's move that forward. I can help facilitate that happening. And then if you need any help from the outreach group, let us know as well.
Okay, but I guess for getting back to what I was trying to convey, like with this group that Bex, I, and you are in subgroup 3, just to have a subgroup meeting in the next 2 weeks. Tell me what we're talking about. I just kind of, I'm not getting something.
Okay.
I hope it's clear to everybody else. I'm sorry that I'm just not clear on it.
No, I don't think it's clear to all of us. I think I'm trying to get this whole group kind of moving in a forward direction. And there's things that are really clear that we can move forward right now, which is these outreach pieces on induction stoves, on electric vehicles, on hybrid water heaters. And there's 2 different groups that are working on that. The educational piece is a little more vague at this point. But I would be happy to also meet with Bex and Brian if we want to talk about, like, okay, it's vague, but what specifically is needed on the general climate change awareness piece. So
Okay.
maybe we do want to meet and just see, okay, what's our time frame? Is there a specific target right now, or is it something that we want to be ready for in the future?
Okay.
We could meet and have that discussion if you want.
Let's meet, but with the meeting brought forward next week, let's just meet when we can.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, Risa.
Does it make sense for the basis of what we are working on, say, starting with subgroup 1?
Mhm.
Wouldn't eventually the goal be like all of the conservation initiatives that the city currently supports, on the website, and and then prioritizing those things, because some things are going to come up higher on the list than others? But is that sort of the topics that have already been determined? Or maybe this is the wrong question. I'm just
Right now, that group came up because we lost Bridget, who was doing the outreach on the highest priority, most pressing kind of issues that the city was moving forward at the time. So I don't think it's going to be us taking on all of the different programs that the city has. I think we're going to do the ones in the moment that the city is needing people to know about right now. There might be things that come internally from us. These ones are coming from Stu implementing the SEEP. Me saying, hey, in your current implementation of the SEEP, what kinds of support can we offer you? And these were those priorities. There could be other things that the Conservation Commission decides are important that we want to move forward.
like at different times a year, care for the storm drain, collecting leaves, or water conservation, that kind of thing.
Yep. Okay, so we need to move on. And I felt like we made some progress, especially in the outreach group. And I think that in the next month, when we start to work across the 2 groups, it'll be a good way for us to make some progress on doing actual outreach on some of these topics. Can we talk about the sneak? Okay. So Jamie's not here, but we have an article for this time, which is the Debunked Tackling 5 Myths About Ashland's Recycling. And that is moving forward for the December sneak preview. Does anyone have any feedback on that article? Risa?
I move to approve that article.
I second it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic.
Okay, great. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, article is ready to go. I agree, it was really good. I liked the tone a lot, and
I really like the tone, and I think we could all, it was engaging, and it's something that we could take to future articles.
yeah, yes. So next article, and this is just, this is up for discussion. So right now we have Anya on for the kind of a New Year's article for January, which could be, again, kind of the young person's perception, maybe after COP26, that's going to, have some more teeth to it, or, but also, again, Anya, you don't have to write this article. There are plenty of other articles to be written. And as we mentioned earlier, there's other groups wanting space in the sneak as well. So I guess I want to offer that spot to you, but not if it feels like it's just too much, especially right after the holidays, which might be a stressful time.
Okay, I'm just wondering, it's on there, it says, is it due for November 3rd to turn in? So like, would I need to have that done in a couple of days?
Oh, you're right. Yeah, because the meeting was
The 17th of November.
yeah. Sorry, yeah, because we moved the meeting up because of Thanksgiving. So the packet. So the packet is going to go out probably around the 8th or the 9th. So it actually just has to be ready for that. I think Jamie was trying to streamline it and just say, okay, it's always due the week before. So there's a buffer in there, but it could be due for the 8th or 9th, but that might be coming up too tight, which is totally fine. We'll just do it another time.
Okay, yeah, maybe I get back on my trip like right at the end of October. I could maybe have it done by the 9th. I think if it's okay though, I'd like to hold off and get my footing a little bit more.
Okay, that sounds good.
And I think it would be good to have the Glasgow conference in the rear view mirror to be able to reference too, right? You think, Anya?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we need an article for January sneak, which would be due by the 8th or the 9th. Yeah, Risa.
So what about the topic that we just discussed? I don't know if anyone feels moved to write about educating our community about the SEEP and about the importance of integrating climate impacts in everything we do and why it matters.
Bex.
I'll volunteer for something along those lines. I think it's an important.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's
so.
important, and I'm just not, you're a way better person to write about it than me, so.
Thank you, Risa. I still think you'd have the talent here. What date are we talking? What have I just volunteered for?
So our next meeting is the 17th of November. The packet usually goes out the Monday before that. So that's the 8th. So we need it in ready for the packet.
I can't.
Okay.
I wouldn't be able to do it justice. Sorry, I thought it was a few months down the road because the others are coming in first. Yeah, no, I can't commit to that.
Okay. Is there any, it was really nice that Jamie, just pulled out her recycling one really quickly, and it was so fitting and timely. Is there anything else that feels to people like it would be ready quickly? Just a pretty easy topic to, or even going to the archives and rerunning something, reworking it a little bit.
I can do, when would it be published? January?
Yeah, this is for January.
Okay.
So I'm confused about the January date you just mentioned,
Yeah.
because, oh, the published date. Okay, sorry, I'm misreading this chart. Okay, never mind.
Okay, sorry, this was not part of my plan of managing this part of the discussion. So I'm not sure what we want to do about moving this forward without Jamie here. And the February one, I just don't feel like it's the right timing for that. Like January wouldn't be a good month, I think, to talk about that topic. It would be really short turnaround to ask one of the other commissions if they wanted that slot. So that doesn't quite seem fair to them to say, well, you can have it, but only if you do it immediately. So,
And I just want to say that we need to talk about what our process is when other commissions in the city are writing articles, and because their commission has to approve it, and then they have to send it to our commission for approval, I'm assuming, and then it gets published. I don't, Stu is nodding his head, maybe he could speak to that. And
in the past, we've just voted to give it to them and let them write it, and we haven't then had to approve what they wrote, which saves that whole step. Stu, did you have input on that?
Not really. I mean, it's the conservation corner, so I always kind of feel like you folks have the final say. But if you want to give it away, I think that works too. We just have to make sure it's all coordinated with Jamie.
Okay. I'm going to suggest that for January, we ask if Jim Hartman wants the Ashland Solar Cooperative, unless someone has another idea for that article that's coming up really fast.
That sounds like a good idea. I support that.
Okay. Yeah, Brian.
Just related to Jim, so are you asking for him for an immediate kind of next few days turnaround? Because he's leaving on a trip like in the next day or two.
Okay. So that's probably not going to do.
I think that's what he said in our board meeting today.
Okay.
I mean, we can ask him, but
They have like a week and a half. Whoever decides to write an article, they have a week and a half, but we do have to make sure that we all agree on the topic.
And I just want to say that when we have two approved, then it helps to reduce the pickles that we find ourselves in this moment. In an ideal situation, if we had more than one, then we could lean on that one, just for the future, you know.
Yeah.
If we do have a gap here, I'd be happy to recycle a Road to Go article.
Is it time to tell people about Road to Go again?
It's always time.
Always time.
Okay. Well, you can make it about New Year's resolutions. If you make this a New Year's resolution to reduce.
Lisa would be perfect for this.
I'm good with that.
I think we have a lot of material, Risa.
If we're both doing it, I can kind of wrap around it, but I can't take it.
Okay.
So if we're team doing it, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll do it.
So Bex and Risa are going to talk about Road to Go for the next article. And we will come into the next meeting with a longer list of potential articles so we can get them lined up and not have any gaps coming up.
Add my climate change one to the list for further down.
Okay. Okay. And then do we want to offer any specific months? And at this point, March looks good. Do we want to offer March to the Climate Policy Commission? So they would need to have an article done in January.
Stu had his finger up.
Yeah, I was just thinking, might want to check with the wildfire folks, because usually they launch their campaign in March or April. I know because our campaigns were competing this year, so or maybe it's May, but in any event, launching their article around March, April would probably be good for them.
Okay.
CPC would probably take any month you give them.
Okay, Brian?
I think that's a great idea, Stuart. I do know from those meetings I've been in that wildfire safety is hot to trot and wants to get on the schedule.
Okay,
And they were thinking spring.
let's offer March to them and I don't, do we have to vote on that? Sorry. Or is that just a,
Would
No,
you
just
like-
approve the article before it publishes. So they need to submit that for the January meeting then?
Mhm.
Would you like me to email the rep from wildfire safety and ask them to have a March?
Yeah, so they would need in January to send an article to us for us to look over at the January meeting.
So just tell me the time frame to tell him.
So they would have to have an article ready for us to review by,
And remember, our meeting's at the end of January.
yeah. So I think by the 12th of January, so that it makes it into the packet.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'll email that today.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I will ask Jim Hartman about the Ashland Solar Cooperative one for next time, not this coming up one, but the next one. Okay. Anything else about the sneak? And then we have wrap up. So next time we are going to have a presentation from Jim on the Ashland Solar Cooperative. I don't know if we want to have any more discussion around nuclear power after the presentation that we heard, if that's something we want to at least have a short discussion around. We don't have to, but I just thought I'd see if there's interest. And then I would like to schedule more of a goal setting retreat. And we're running out of time to do that now. So I think I'll send out like a doodle poll to get some dates to see when people are available, and we'll move forward with that.
Sounds good.
You
Okay.
envision a half day or a day or a weekend day or?
I think a week. We were thinking just a week would probably do it.
In
Okay.
Hawaii?
Yeah, I would say a half day at the most. More than 2 hours, probably less than 4. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks, Marty.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Good meeting, y'all.
Yeah, great meeting. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.